All right. Good afternoon, kids watching this. Today we're going to read a couple more books for story time. I'm going to start with a younger book and then one that everyone can enjoy, and then we're going to read our Alice in Wonderland book. We're going to read chapter 2 of that. Today is Mother's Day, so hopefully you thanked your mother today for everything that she's done for you. Any of you that have mummies out there, and hopefully you gave her something nice. Maybe did a few chores for her. That would be nice. Okay. First book we have today is Bugs Bunny's Carrot Machine. All right. It's a little bit of an older book. Books like this were around when I was a kid. What year was this made? 1971. And I wasn't born until 1980. So this book was 9 years old before I was born. Okay. One day, Bugs Bunny came running out of a second-hand bookshop in great excitement. He bumped into Elmer Fudd. "Whoa, Wabbit!" Elmer cried. "What's the wush?" "Look what I found in an old magazine," Bugs replied. "The plans for a carrot-making machine. Want to help me build one?" Elmer looked at the plans. "I'll be glad to," he said, "if I'll keep you out of my garden. According to these plans, all we need to build your machine are some pieces of junk." "Forward, then, to the town trash heap," cried Bugs. Dreams of fresh, crisp, golden carrots filled his head. "I'll be rich," he gloated. "With a carrot-making machine, I'll never be hungry again." At the city dump, Bugs and Elmer found an old boiler. They filled it with junk, plumbing pipes, auto parts, old clothes, broken bottles, rusty nails, and carried it to Elmer's backyard. There, following the plans, they set to work building the carrot machine. Soon it was finished. It had a spout in the front, a funnel on top, a red underwear button in back, and pipes sticking out of every which way. "You think this thing will make carrots?" asked Elmer doubtfully. "We followed the plan," said Bugs. "Let's try it out." Bugs pushed the red button on the back of the machine. Nothing happened. "See," Elmer said, "this crazy thing doesn't work. It says here," he said, looking at the plans, "that we have to put in some ingredients." Bugs read the instructions himself. To operate machine, fill up anything handy and push the button. Don't overload. Bugs immediately began to throw some of their leftover junk into the funnel on top of the carrot machine. Elmer helped him. "Now!" cried Bugs. "Let's see what happens." He pushed the red button again. Zap! The carrot machine suddenly came to life. It began to sputter and smoke. Then, with a dry coughing sound, it blew a square, small, green object out of its spout and onto the ground. What do you guys think it is? Let's find out. Bugs picked it up. "Some carrot," he said. "Wrong shape and wrong color." "How does it taste, though?" Elmer asked. "That's what really counts." Bugs nibbled at the square green carrot. "Hey," he cried in surprise. "It's not half bad, Elmer." "See what you think." Elmer took a bite. "I think it's a bit tough, Bugs. We ought to season it so it's softer." Bugs looked around and found a moth-eaten soft pillow. "Here's something pretty soft," he said. He pushed the pillow down the funnel and pushed the button. Another small, square green carrot came out of the spout. Bugs tasted it. "Perfect," he shouted. "Delicious." Then he frowned. "But who ever heard of eating square green carrots? I'd be laughed by every rabbit in town." He scratched one ear. "I need something pointed," he said, and he tossed 3 rusty iron spikes into the machine. This time the machine spit out a carrot that was still green and still small, but was pointed at one end, just like a real carrot. Bugs knew the secret now. Find something orange color. He cried, "That ought to do it." Elmer hunted down until he found a broken marmalade jar with an orange label on it. He tossed it into the machine. "Now try it." Bugs pushed the button. This time the carrot was just perfect. It was the right color, it was the right shape, and the right taste. But Bugs still wasn't satisfied. "I want 'em bigger," he said. "These little bitty carrots hardly make half a mouthful." He gathered everything up in a heap of trash and threw it all in the machine. "Now we'll get some decent-sized carrots." The carrot machine shook and shuddered and smoked. It ground and coughed and sputtered, but no carrot came out of its spout. And then, all of a sudden, and with a dreadful bang, the carrot machine exploded into hundreds of pieces. One piece hit Bugs and knocked him head over heels. "Now you've done it, you greedy wabbit," Elmer scolded him. "You've overloaded the machine. It's completely ruined." Yes, Elmer Fudd talks like that. Ruined, not ruined, ruined, yeah. "Cheer up, Doc, we'll make another," said Bugs, picking himself up. "Where did I put those plans?" "You threw them in the machine with everything else," said Elmer. "So there'll be no more carrot machines for you, you crazy wabbit. I hope this has taught you a lesson." "Oh, it sure has, Doc," grinned at his friend. "Just look at what's left of our beautiful carrot machine. It's pointing the way to something even better." Elmer stared down at the pieces of junk. They had fallen to the ground in the shape of an arrow. "You wascally wabbit, you!" Elmer shouted. "Don't you dare!" For sure enough, the arrow pointed straight to Elmer Fudd's prized carrot patch. The end. That's a good book. That's funny. Okay, next book today, Monsters, Inc. This will be fun. All those monsters. Monsters, Inc. Okay, here we go. All monsters know that there are all children know that there are monsters in their bedrooms, and at night these monsters will come out and scare them. What children don't know is that these monsters are just doing their jobs. Monsters need to scare children and collect their screams. The monsters then turn the screams into electricity for the city of Monstropolis, where the monsters live. Early one morning, a furry blue monster named James P. Sully, and his best friend, a one-eyed monster named Mike, were walking through Monstropolis. They were on their way to work at Monsters, Inc., where Sully was the best scare that Monsters, Inc. has ever had. Mike was his assistant. Mike and Sully stopped in the lobby of Monsters, Inc. "Happy birthday," Mike said to his girlfriend, Celia. "Oh, Googly Woogly, you remembered," Celia said happily. Mike was taking her out to dinner that evening, and she knew he had picked a great restaurant. Then, Sully and Mike went to the workers' locker room to get ready for work. All of a sudden, a large chameleon-like shaped monster named Randall appeared out of nowhere. "Ah!" shouted a surprised Mike. Randall could make himself invisible by blending into any background, but he was jealous of Sully. Randall wanted to be the best scarer at Monsters, Inc., and he was determined to beat Sully somehow. Mike and Sully left the locker room and went to the scare floor. There, lots of monsters gathered in front of a long row of doors. These were the doors that let the monsters into the bedrooms of children in the human world. Red lights were lit above the doors to show that they were ready. It was time for the scares to begin. The monsters headed for the doors. "Hey, may the best monster win," said Sully. "I plan to," said Randall. Sully quickly scared a lot of kids and collected a lot of screams. His assistant Fungus pointed proudly to the scoreboard. But that day, Sully opened a door to the children's slumber party. He scared all the children there, collecting more screams from a single door than any other monster. He was still the stop scare at Monsters, Inc. Suddenly, someone shouted, 2319! We have a 2319! A child's sock had been spotted on the back of the monster named George. 2319 meant that special agents from the Child Detection Agency, the CDA, had to come. They had to decontaminate George, after all. Every monster knows that children and their things are toxic. Soon the workday was over. Just as Mike was about to leave with Celia, a monster named Roz stopped him. Roz was a monster in charge of paperwork. Mike had forgotten to hand in his scare reports again. Sully told Mike that he would take care of it for him. So while Mike left with Celia, Sully headed back to collect Mike's paperwork. Back on the scare floor, Sully felt something. It was a little girl grabbing his tail. Like all of the monsters, he was terrified of kids. They were considered even more toxic than socks. Kids were not allowed in Monsteropolis. Panicking, Sully tried to find the right door so he could put the little girl back in her room. But the little girl wasn't scared of Sully at all. "Kitty," she called to him. She wanted to play. Sully finally managed to put her into a duffel bag, but just then he spotted Randall. Sully quickly hid. He couldn't let anyone find out about this. Sully didn't know what to do, so he went to find Mike. Mike wasn't happy with having his romantic dinner with Celia interrupted, and he was terrified when the little girl crept out of the bag. He wasn't the only one. Monsters everywhere began to panic and scream. Mike and Sully managed to whisk the girl away before CDA agents arrived at the restaurant. No one saw Mike and Sully take the child home, but their problems were not over. Helicopters had begun to search the city for the little girl. Mike and Sully tried to come up with a plan to get her back to her own bedroom. In the meantime, they needed to help her keep her happy, but not too happy. Whenever the little girl laughed, she caused a power surge that lit up all the lights. If that kept happening, it would be easy for the CDA agents to find her. Eventually, the little girl fell asleep. By now, Sully was less afraid of her. He was actually growing fond of her. Perhaps children weren't dangerous at all. However, Mike wasn't so sure. He couldn't wait until she was back home. The next morning, they disguised her as a little monster and brought her back to Monsters, Inc. The trio had to walk right past their boss, Mr. Waternoose, while he was talking to a CDA agent. Sully quickly headed for the locker room with the little girl. He began to play hide-and-go-seek with her. He even gave her a nickname, Boo. "What are you doing?" Mike asked Sully when he entered the room. I'm looking for the kid," answered Sully. "You lost it?" asked Mike in disbelief. Suddenly, Boo ran and jumped into Sully's arms. Just then, they heard a noise. It was Randall and his assistant Fungus. The trio quickly hid. Fungus held a newspaper. "It's on the front page," he said. "The child, the one you're after." Randall said to act as if nothing had happened and to take care of the machine. Randall would deal with the monster who had let the kid into Metropolis. Mike and Sully could tell that Randall was up to something. But what? But Mike and Sully had more important things on their minds. They managed to sneak Boo up to the scare floor so they could put her back in her bedroom. They had to just find the right door. Sully was getting ready to say goodbye when he told Mike to wait. He didn't have the right door. "What are you talking about? Of course it's her door," insisted Mike. While they were arguing, Boo wandered off. Unfortunately, As Sully and Mike searched for Boo, they ran straight into Randall. "So what do you think of that kid getting out, Sullivan? Pretty crazy, huh?" Randall said. "Oh yeah," Sully said slowly. "Crazy." Then Cecilia appeared. "Last night was one of the worst nights of my life," she shouted at Mike. Randall listened in. Looking at his paper closely, he spotted Mike in the picture at the restaurant where the kid had been hid. Suddenly, Randall realized that Mike and Sully had the kid. Mike could see what was coming, so he tried to run away. But Randall soon caught up with him. "Where's the kid?" he demanded, pushing Mike up against the wall. I don't know," Mike sputtered, but Randall didn't believe him. He told Mike that he'd meet him at the kid's door when all the other monsters left for lunch. But he'd better make sure the girl was there so they could get her back to the human world. Meanwhile, Sully was still searching for Boo. He rounded a corner just in time to see her fall into a trash can. "No!" he shouted, as two monsters wheeled the can up to a compactor. By the time Sully reached the compactor room, everything but one eye stalk had been crushed into a tiny cube. Sully was heartbroken. Mike caught up with his friend, Sully. "Great news, buddy. I got us out of this mess. But we gotta hurry. Where's..." But before Mike could finish, they heard the sound of Boo's voice. She hadn't been crushed after all. With a smile, Sully hugged Boo tightly. Mike, Sully, and Boo hurried back to the scare floor. Boo's door was in Randall's station, just as Randall had promised. But Sully came to a sudden halt. Randall? They couldn't trust Randall. He was after Boo. Mike was sure that everything was safe. To prove it, he enters Boo's room and jumped up and down on the bed. Just then, a box snapped closed over Mike. It was a trap. Sully and Boo hid while Randall grabbed the box and loaded it onto a cart. Thinking it was Boo, Randall carried the box away. Sully had to do something to help his pal. He also needed to see what Randall was up to. So he and Boo followed Randall, and they soon lost him. Luckily, Boo discovered a secret passageway. At the end of the passageway, they found Randall's secret lab in it. He had a machine that could suck the screams out of a child, but now it was Mike who was trapped in the machine. Randall was furious. He wanted to know where the little girl was. Of course, Mike wouldn't tell him. Just then, Sully pulled out the machine's plug, and he, Boo, and Mike managed to get away. The three friends raced down the hall. Mike was desperate to escape, but Sully had another idea. He decided to go to Mr. Waternoose, his old friend, for help. Mike explained about Randall's evil plan to take the screams from children with his machine. To their surprise, Waternoose picked up Boo. Then he pushed Mike and Sully out through a huge metal door into the human world. Mike was furious. "Oh, what a great idea," he shouted at Sully. "Going to your old pal Waternoose? Too bad he was in on the whole thing." But Sully could think only of saving Boo, and he knew they couldn't go back the way they had came. Suddenly, a giant shadow covered the ground. They looked up to see a creature that looked just as scary as they did. He was called the Yeti, the abominable snowman. The Yeti told Sully that there was a village nearby. This gave Sully an idea. If he found a children's bedroom, it might lead him back to Metropolis. Quickly, he built a sleigh from supplies in the Yeti's cave and set off. Mike was too angry with Sully, so he stayed behind. In no time, Sully found a child's bedroom and was back at Monsters, Inc. He raced down the passageway that led to Randall's secret lab. Suddenly, Sully heard Boo's frightened voice close by. "Boo, I'm here! Where are you?" whispered Sully. Sully was horrified to find Boo strapped to the scream machine, more frightened than ever before. Sully roared in, smashed the machine, and rescued Boo. The machine crashed to the ground and slid into Waternoose and Fungus, pinning them to the wall. "Stop wasting time. Finish him off," Waternoose shouted to Randall as Sully and Boo escaped. Sully and an invisible Randall fought furiously over Boo. In the middle of the fight, Mike came back, just in time to hit Randall with a snowball. This made Randall just visible enough that Sully could punch him. Then Sully ran down the hallway with Mike and Boo. The trio reached the scare floor with Randall right behind them. Then Sully had an idea. They raced up to the moving doorways. Sully told Mike to make Boo laugh. As Boo laughed, all the red door lights lit up. Sully, Mike, and Boo jumped back and forth through different doors, hoping to lose Randall. But Randall finally caught Boo and fled. Sully followed him and found Boo alone. When Sully ran to her, Randall attacked. Boo was afraid, but she had to help, so she grabbed Randall's tail and bit him. That was all Sully needed. He threw Randall through another door that led into the human world. He was never to be heard from again. Back on the scare floor, Mr. Waternoose and a group of seedy agents were waiting for them. Suddenly, Mike had an idea. He took Boo's costume and ran as fast as he could. The agents, believing the costume to be blue, began chasing Mike in the commotion. Sully and Boo managed to get away. Mr. Waternoose finally caught up with Sully and Boo. In his anger, he told them that the city of Metropolis didn't have enough energy, so they had to find an alternative to scaring. He wanted to kidnap kids from the human world and extract their screams with the machine. That was why Randall had been looking for Boo. "I'll kidnap 1,000 children before I let this company die," Mr. Waternoose vowed. But Roz, who turned out to be a CDA boss, had overheard his confession, and Mr. Waternoose was taken away by CDA agents. Finally, it was time to send Boo home. Sully took her to her room and tucked her into bed. "Nothing's going to come to scare you anymore, right?" he said. Boo smiled. "Goodbye, Boo," he whispered. Slowly, Sully crossed to the door. He looked back at Boo, who watched him from the bed. Quietly, Sully closed the door behind him. Back in the scare room, 2 CD agents moved in. They shredded Boo's door and took it away. Sadly, Sully picked up a small piece of the door. At least he had this to remind him of Boo. Mike knew how much Sully already missed Boo. "Come on, pal, cheer up," he said, as they left Monsters, Inc. "We got Boo home. Sure, we're both out of a job, but hey, at least we had some laughs along the way." Slowly a smile spread across Sully's face. Mike had just given him an idea. Time passed, and Sully turned the screen floor into a laugh floor. These monsters made kids laugh instead of scream to get energy. Boo had showed them that laughter was 10 times as powerful as screams. The energy crisis was over in Metropolis. Still, Sully missed his little friend Boo, so one day, Mike glued her entire door back together. That way, Sully could visit Boo whenever he liked, and that's just what he did. The end. So, I think that's all we're going to read today. I know that we had planned to read Alice in Wonderland, but I think that my phone's going to run out of battery. So, let's see. Oh yeah. I'm not going to be able to read it. It's 20 pages. You know what? Let's try and pound it out. Chapter 2. "Life is getting curiouser and curiouser," cried Alice, who was so surprised that for the moment she quite forgot how to speak good English. Yeah, this is going to be too long, kids. So we're going to read Chapter 2 first thing tomorrow. Okay? We'll read Chapter 2 of Alice in Wonderland first thing tomorrow. And we'll read another long story as well. So then we'll have 2 stories tomorrow. Alice in Wonderland and then maybe something about dogs, read a dog story, and then maybe a superhero story. That's what I'm thinking for tomorrow. So, yes, hopefully you guys did something good for your mother, and we will read books tomorrow. Okay? Have a good day. Have a good evening. Talk to you soon.